Girl, leave that mindless eating alone. Welcome to season 8 of the Relationship Series. I am your host, Genevieve. This season is called Girl, Leave. And sometimes the thing we need to leave isn't a person. Sometimes it's a pattern or a habit. So today we're talking about something deeply personal, I believe, to many of us. We're talking about mindless eating. And let me give you the definition of mindless eating. The consumption of food without awareness, often driven by distractions, emotions, or environmental cues rather than physical hunger. It is characterized by eating on autopilot, such as while we're watching TV, while we're working, while we're scrolling, which often leads to overeating, poor digestion, and lack of enjoyment. This is eating when we're not hungry, eating because we're stressed, eating because we're lonely, eating because life is hard, whatever the case is. So we want to start with a tough question today and answer it. So what is our eating really saying about our lives? That is the question. What is our eating really saying about our lives? If mindless eating is rarely about hunger, then it's about something else. I know for me, it was trying not to feel. For me, I was fresh out of another breakup from a relationship I knew wasn't right for me in the first place. From the beginning, actually, but I spent years in. Anyways, I was thinking, I'm turning 40, my time is running out. And don't fall for that trap, ladies. Your time is not running out and it's not worth it. So there I was, mad at myself for wasting more time that I don't have or that I thought I didn't have with this waste man. And then I'm grieving and I'm eating and I'm grieving and I'm eating and my credit card bill is telling me the whole story. Like daily high calorie everything. Fast food, sweet drinks, cake, muffins, chips. So today we are going to talk about, girl, leave that mindless eating alone. And we're going to talk about 3 components and their interplay. So we're going to talk about the sociology of food. We're going to talk about the physiological impacts of food. And we're going to talk about the psychology of eating. Okay. So the sociocultural narratives around food, like food and eating is a big deal. The narratives and beliefs and scripts associated with food, we may not be aware of them or we may be aware, but food is not just food. Food represents culture, it represents love, it represents comfort, it represents celebration, it represents survival. Many of us grew up in cultures, I know I did, where food brought people together. Everything social revolved around food. Dates revolved around food. You know, we're going to dinner, we're going for a coffee, we're going for breakfast, we're going for brunch. Friends, birthdays, weddings, funerals, like food, sweets, desserts, cake, everything. Growing up, there was a lot of family members, especially women, who had high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and so on, but we just kept eating. And that doesn't even address the pressures around food that I experience outside of my home and outside of my culture. I'm looking at school or work or church or, you know, when I'm on sports teams or whatever. And I'm not petite by any nature. I'm almost 5'9" and have a pretty athletic build. I've just disappointed many people over the years because people are like, well, you're so tall, you should play basketball. But I'm growing up, and I'm talking about food and eating in the context of friends. When I moved to the suburbs, I'm growing up with these anorexic looking white girls, and they ride bikes and they do synchronized swimming and they go ice skating and stuff. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, they're not like me. I'm tick, you know? And like, eating was such a different experience for me. I go over to their houses and they're like, oh, we're eating craft dinner. And I'm like, craft dinner? I mean, we have rice and peas and chicken and ting and, you know, all them, like, that's what I'm bringing for lunch. You're bringing like Nutella with little crackers to dip in. So just a very different experience around food when it comes to culture. And the Canadian Health Guide excluded foods that I ate in my home. The Canadian Health Guide was like, oh, you know, you eat broccoli and you eat Brussels sprouts and you eat like chicken that doesn't look like it has any kind of seasoning in it and all that. Like, we didn't eat that at my house. If my dad's cooking food, he's cooking semo and egusi and things like that. And my mom's cooking food, she's cooking a nice soup with chicken foot and, you know, all kind of thing in there, right? We're having yam and edos and like there's good food in there. And so we like, to me, those things didn't apply. I was like, I don't even know how to read those things. I don't know how those things apply to me and my eating and my body and what's good for me. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about this like BMI thing, because that's become like such a big deal, this BMI, body mass index. And they tell you how tall you need to be for the weight that you need to be. And I think one of the cautions I have with this weight body type thing, especially when it comes to Black women, is that those measures are not created for or fully inclusive of diverse cultures. So they don't take into account our different foods and our different body types. I don't believe my 5'9" frame is supposed to be 148 pounds. I'm so sorry. Like, I have hips, tits, and lips. Like, that's not a thing. And I've been told for decades that this will BMI and these measures and so on determines whether or not we're healthy or unhealthy. And I don't think it's meant to be a medical diagnosis. I think we need to look at other factors, not just height and weight. We have to look at muscle mass. We have to look at fat distribution. We have to look at like our body type, our makeup, who we are, where we're from, what we eat, what we do. We have to look at all those things. So I think across cultures or across populations, we really need to look at what clinicians are seeing more as a fuller picture and examine not just our height to weight, but our blood pressure, our cholesterol, the inflammation in our bodies, things like that. I want to caution us not to obsess over certain types of metrics, like the BMI or the food guide or whatever, but to understand how our bodies are actually functioning, how they're actually feeling, and to take note of that. So that's the sociology of it all. The physiological component is that food is necessary. We need food to live. We need to eat. There's good news and bad news associated with that. Because diet is a primary driver of overall health, even if you do work out every day, you may not see as many changes in your body as you'll see if you change your diet. What we eat affects everything. It affects our mind. It affects our mood. It affects our energy level. It affects our instances of illness, of disease, of pain in our bodies. And there are real physiological dangers when it comes to poor eating and poor diet. And there are real consequences. This is a global health reality. I believe it was Michelle Obama. She was advocating against child obesity because the food that the children are eating that they have access to is contributing to obesity levels prepubescent. And so we're looking at an epidemic in our world. This is global. Time magazine did a study. It was a major global analysis, and they found there was millions of deaths annually that are linked to poor diet. That means that diet-related disease was one of the leading causes of death globally. So it's not just about weight. It's about whether our bodies are moving towards health or moving towards disease. And let's be clear, we're going one way or another, but unhealthy eating habits can significantly increase our risk of heart disease, of cardiovascular disease, of stroke, of diabetes, of cancer, of hypertension. In fact, the World Health Organization, I think they labeled something like 70% of deaths globally every year are caused by lifestyle-driven, non-communicable diseases. Think about that for a second. 70-something% of deaths worldwide are linked directly to the choices we make about what we feed our bodies. What is killing us is not random. I know that's bad news. The good news is that simple diet changes can dramatically reduce our risk by up to 40% and reverse the damaging impacts and effects that poor diet has had on our lives. They did a research study with 200,000 people, and they followed them over a decade. And they found that as they made healthier choices in their lives, it reduced their risk of the top three: cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cancer. They increased their intake of fruits and vegetables, nuts and grains, and it reduced the incidence rate of type 2 diabetes diagnoses specifically. Years ago, I had a roommate, and she was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And I had started seeing a naturopath at the time because I was experiencing some issues with my own body. And so she went to see a naturopath, and she changed her eating habits. She started going to Zumba classes, and 8 months or so later, she had lost 40 pounds. And I was like, good for you. You go, girl. Leave that mindless eating alone. But the most incredible part was that she reversed that type 2 diabetes diagnosis. So watching that transformation changed something for me, for sure. And it made me realize that our bodies are incredibly resilient. And once we make a switch or a change, our bodies respond well, right? I think the most hopeful part of the conversation is that our bodies respond incredibly well to the changes that we'll make. Listen to me. You can make a difference. Girl, leave that mindless eating alone. I'm talking within less than a year. We're talking 6 to 8 months. That's the physiological component. The psychological component. So when we look at the psychology of eating, food makes us feel good. Like dopamine, anyone? Psychologically speaking, food can become a drug. And there are 5 drivers I'm going to talk about when it comes to mindless eating. Because again, we're looking at the brain-body connection, and emotional eating driven by anything else, stress, loneliness, boredom, trauma, fatigue, anything like that, is not mindful eating. It is mindless eating. And so, girl, we want to leave that mindless eating alone. So top 5 drivers of mindless eating. Number 1, I think it's modeling an example. So what we saw and learned is what we now model or embody. I learned that when you go through a breakup, you sit in front of the TV, you eat that ice cream, you watch sad movies, and you cry. The example that we saw in the media, in our family members, that is what we subconsciously have adopted as our own behaviors. So I think one of the primary drivers of mindless eating is what we saw, what was modeled for us, and how we are now doing what we saw. Number 2, I think habits and boredom, and I think they go hand in hand, because when we are bored, we do our default. We do what habitually is familiar to us. I have breakfast at this time, I have lunch at this time, I have dinner at this time. This is what I have for breakfast, this is what I have for lunch. It's just habit. Habits and boredom are a definite driver of mindless eating. I think ignorance is a big deal. If we haven't paid attention or reflected perhaps on our relationship with food, we don't know any other way of living. If I don't know any other way of living, then I'm just going to keep living the way I'm living. We don't know another way. And number 4, dopamine cycles are part of what drives us to eat mindlessly. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter in the brain. It's a chemical in the brain. Dopamine is released when our brain is expecting a reward, such as delicious food. When we get what we want, it reinforces that we did something good. Then we get another rush of dopamine that tells our brain, that was great. Remember what we did, and then do it again. We want to feel great again. This is like the addiction cycle. We anticipate something, we want something, we go for that something, we get that something, we want to get that feeling that we had, and so we go and do it again. So that's the dopamine reward cycle in our brains in relation to food. And I think that is a primary driver of mindless eating, because we're like, oh, I felt good. Oh, it felt good. Let's keep doing it. Number 5 is stuffing. So stuffing our feelings. Again, these are all me. I've been here, done all of this. And girl, I left that mindless eating alone because it just was not serving me. Stuffing down my feelings, especially if I'm like tired, bored, angry, sad, lonely, or stressed. Woo! I'm going to eat. I am reaching for all the things I need to eat instead of feeling these feelings. And that just perpetuates this cycle of emotional eating. Stress triggers cortisol. The cortisol increases our cravings for highly processed foods. Those foods create the dopamine reward cycle thing. We get the short-term comfort. We have the long-term consequences. And then over time, it just contributes to all the bad things, right? Weight gain, cardiovascular disease, and fatigue, inflammation, diabetes. This was essentially me 8 months ago. So much inflammation in my body that my doctors were scheduling me for surgery. And I was like, no, girl, leave that mindless eating alone. The issue isn't the food itself, but it's how we use the food to comfort ourselves instead of nourishing ourselves. If that's not what we're doing, then we've missed the point and we're putting ourselves at risk. Sometimes our eating patterns are actually telling the story about our mental health. I used to say this to my clients, your mental health is showing, because there's a reflection on the outside of what's happening on the inside. So, girl, leave that mindless eating alone. Let's talk about types of eaters. I like this, and because I've been all of these, I think you'll probably see yourself in at least one of these. The stress eater, definitely a stress eater. When life felt overwhelming, food became the quickest relief for me. And I mean, work stress, relationship stress, life pressure, all the things. I was like, food, food, food. Number 2 is the lonely eater. When I felt empty, food was there to fill that void. And I'm a person of faith, so I know how to pray, y'all. I know how to praise, I know how to worship, I know how to read my Bible. And still yet, all of these things were present with me that I had to learn how to overcome. I'm just being real with y'all. The reward eater, food was definitely a prize for me. Every single thing that I wanted to celebrate, food. And I'd be like, ooh, this carrot muffin, oh, I deserve this. Yeah. Girl, leave that mindless eating alone, because then celebration becomes constant indulgence. And I'm not talking small portions like, yummy, let me have like one piece of chocolate. I'm talking about like hundreds of grams, hundreds of calories. Craziness. The numb eater, definitely me. Numbing the pain. Eating helped me to avoid grief and disappointment. Those are like the 3. Grief, disappointment, and hurt. Huge. When I'm grieving, when I've lost something, when I'm disappointed because I didn't get something that I expected that I wanted, and when somebody hurts me, yeah, I'm reaching straight for the food. Now I have other things that I reach for. But girl, leave that mindless eating alone. If that's you, I know how you feel. But we can't do it. We can't. Number 5 is the habit eater. Again, we're not hungry. We always eat at a certain time. We always eat in certain environments. If I go to the movies with my girls, I'm getting a whole thing of popcorn. I'm not hungry. I don't need the popcorn. I ate all my calories for the day. I'm nourished, but I'm going to get the popcorn anyways. If I'm sitting in front of the TV and I'm watching, a series, I have to have snacks. Ooh, chips, now I don't have those in my house, but, we get it, right? If you're the habit eater, girl, leave that mindless eating alone. Make intentional, conscious choices. We have to be aware of how these habits are working against us and working against what we really want. My wake-up call came after a breakup. 2.5 years passed, and slowly my body changed. The moment I realized that things had shifted very dramatically was when I put on a pair of my workout shorts, and they were like cutting off the circulation in my thighs. I remember going to the clinic to get a checkup, and she weighed me on the scale and she wrote down the number on the paper, and I looked down and I was like, couldn't be me. Ma'am, you clearly made an error. But it was true, it was real. And it really forced me to ask myself something honestly. Jen, is this how you want to care for yourself? And I had to come to terms with myself, because I am the one making these choices every day that led me here. It wasn't a point of shame. It was hard, yes, to admit that to myself, but it was also somewhat motivating, because I realized I can get somewhere else if I make different choices about my life, because I've gotten here through the choices that I've made. First of all, I had to come to terms with the fact that I can't eat and work out like I'm in my 20s anymore, because I'm not. I had to leave that lie behind and face reality. I was like, girl, you're in your 40s, stop this. And you have to do things differently. These are some things I did differently. I started working with a program designed specifically for my needs, like women over 40, Black women, women with hormonal stuff going on, fibroids. I spent the last 8 months working on these areas, and I've lost over 30 pounds. It's a celebration, yes. I'm not going to celebrate with food. Girl, leave the mindless eating alone. But the most important change for me wasn't the weight. It was more about my relationship with food, my relationship with my body, and the transformation in my heart around what I really felt for myself. Practically, I started with awareness. I did 3 months of awareness building, even though I really didn't want to see what was there. But I tell this to my clients all the time, you can't change what you can't see, so you have to be willing to face the truth. I downloaded Noom, which is a really good app for building awareness and countering thought distortions. I bought a scale. I start logging my food intake every day. I started weighing myself every day, looking at my calories, and I was eating crap, and a lot of it. And I was thinking, no wonder I feel so depleted all the time. I'm not doing anything to nourish my body, to energize myself. So I did that. I worked with my therapist, asked myself some questions, did journaling. I asked myself, like, hey, Jen, what is it that you actually need? When did this start? What is happening to you? I know I was sad. I was feeling somewhat hopeless. And I think one of the hardest things I had to admit during that time was that I had stopped caring about myself. And I had to work through that. What I was doing, my behaviors, my eating habits were driven by that belief that I didn't deserve the care. Yeah. And so that became a point to start asking myself, hey, why don't you care about yourself? Like, what's going on here? And then I did some research and identified some relevant resources. I chose Melissa Neal, and then I made a vow to myself. I vowed to myself, Genevieve, you are going to work on this every single day forever. You can never do nothing, because God loves you and you love you. You are going to care for yourself the way that God cares for you. And so every day I do something. I don't do a lot. I don't do the most, but I'm very consistent. I do something every day. Do something every single day. Girl, leave that mindless eating alone. There are a million resources, support groups, apps, coaching programs, Overeaters Anonymous. I'll tell you my game changers that actually help that you can start yesterday. The number one thing is mindful eating. You're going to switch from that unconscious autopilot way of eating based in like habit or based in stress or based in a routine. And you're going to switch to mindful eating. Last summer, I started doing mindfulness 5 minutes a day. And so when I eat, I don't scroll, I don't watch TV, I'm not on my computer, I'm eating. I'm looking at the food, I'm smelling the food, I'm tasting the food, I'm chewing the food, I'm enjoying the food. Mindful eating helps to improve fullness, increase your fiber and whole food intake. Eat real food. Get rid of that ultra processed stuff. Eat real food, fruits, vegetables, nuts, and grains. Sleep. Don't sleep on sleep. Poor sleep increases hunger hormones. And good sleep helps with building your muscle, helps with losing weight while you sleep. Get good sleep. Number 4, deal with your stress. Deal with your stress, deal with your stress, deal with your stress. Relationship stress, work stress, go to therapy, do your meditation. If you are like me, you might want to walk in nature. You might want to go kayaking or canoeing or something or rowing. Whatever it is that helps you relieve stress, throwing knives, playing basketball, deal with your stress. Change your environment is number 5. This is big. If you don't want to eat chips, don't buy the chips and put them on your counter. Keep healthy foods visible and accessible. That is it. Change your environment. I have my weights set out. I have my exercise mat set out. I know I'm waking up in the morning. What are you doing, Jen? You're going to go wash your face, brush your teeth. You're going to come back. You're going to do your journal, your devotion. And then what? You are going to put on those workout shorts that you laid out last night and you are going to get on your workout mat. That's what you're going to do. Change your environment. Make it conducive to what you want to build and do in your life. Number 6 is move. Every day, do something. Every single thing helps with your body, helps with your joints. It helps with your heart, your stamina. Do something every day. Move. Don't just sit in one place. Get up. Do 10 jumping jacks. I have a watch. It literally just told me to start a workout.
Workout paused.
And it vibrated 2 seconds ago to tell me to get up and take a walk because I've been recording for more than half an hour. So get up, move. Number 7 is increase your protein intake. I didn't really know too much about this before. I just started this last summer. I use Good Protein. If you guys are in Canada, Good Protein is a really good brand. I still stick to vegan products, so Good Protein is a good vegan product. And I use Naked products. So Naked is also a good brand. If you want to use supplements, go to a naturopath, find out what's best for your body. The recommended amount of protein is 1 gram per pound of body weight, I believe. I never get to that, but I still try. So do what you can and keep improving. And number 8 is lift weights. Game changer for me and not exaggerating. 8-week transformation, y'all. I took a picture on day 1 and after 8 weeks and I was like, what just happened? Get in touch with Melissa Neal. She will give you all the details, all the food, all the workouts. It was like $100 and downloaded app. I didn't lift heavy weights, guys. I got 5 and 10 and 20 pound weights. Again, I didn't do the most. I didn't do a lot, but I was consistent and I saw change. And number 9, this is not evidence-based, research back, anything like that. But number 9 is chew gum. Like I said, perpetual snacker. I love snacking. I love grazing all day long. Girl, leave that mindless eating alone. I had to stop that. So I was like, what am I going to do? I was like a drug addict or like a person trying to quit smoking. I was like, oh my God, I'm fiending. I need something in my mouth. And so I was just like, oh, I can chew gum. Every time I was eating like packs a day. It was ridiculous. But it helped. Now I'm not eating packs a day. It helped me at the beginning. So it helped me with snacking and the sugar and cravings and things like that. So number 9 is chew gum. Again, no evidence behind that, but it worked for me. And then number 10 is drink water. And I think this was the hardest for me, but boy, oh boy, when I got a hang of it, my skin, my hair, my lungs, my breathing, my focus, my mind, everything loves it. I love water now because of the impact that it's had on my life. So drink water. One of the things that I love to leave with is self-awareness questions. I call them SAQs. And I'm going to leave these questions with you because they really did help me. And I want you to have an opportunity to find out where you're at. The first question that I ask myself is, Jen, do you feel good about you? Do you feel good about you? And I had to answer that. And it was hard, but I did. The next question is this how you want to show up for yourself? Again, I had to answer the question, and a very difficult question to answer at the time because I wasn't where I wanted to be and I wasn't showing up for myself the way that I wanted to. This is not a point of shame. This is a point of honesty, of awareness, and of desire to care for yourself as best as is possible. You're offering yourself the gift of care. So girl, leave that mindless eating alone is not like you're so bad, you're so terrible for it. No, this is like you need to let go of the thing that's hindering you from being your best self and taking care of yourself the way that you deserve to be taken care of. The third question was the one I asked at the beginning, which is, what is the way we are eating really saying about us? So what is the way that you are eating saying about you? Again, our mental health is showing. What's happening on the inside is reflected on the outside of us. So let's answer those questions and then move towards change. This Girl Leave movement is about leaving anything that keeps us from becoming our best, our healthiest selves. And it is about all kinds of relationships that we have to leave. Sometimes it's a relationship with a person or a partner, and dare I say most other times, it is leaving a relationship with a pattern or with a habit or with a lifestyle, with a way, with an approach. And we have to do it because our entire lives are dependent on us leaving. So girl, leave that mindless eating alone. Next week, we're going to be talking about, girl, leave that mindset alone. So we're going to leave behind excuses, self-doubt, justification, denial, believing lies, all the things that keep us back. My personal story involves thinking very poorly of myself always. Like as a baseline, internally, I always thought very poorly of myself. I'm not pretty. I'm not smart. I'm not articulate. I'm not a good communicator. I'm just not. And it was this constant repeated echo. So I've been working on that. And from the day I said, girl, leave that mindset alone, it unlocked something on the inside of me. And hopefully it will have that same effect on you as I give you permission and invite you to girl, leave. I am Genevieve. This is the Relationship Series Season 8. It is great to have you here, and it is an honor to transform with you.